thumbs up. Always love the thumbs up. Hi folks, my name is Marty Dobrow. I am a professor of communications, and welcome to the Sports and Social Justice Symposium. Really pretty much my favorite day of the academic year at Springfield College. This event is co-sponsored by the Division of Inclusion and Community Engagement. Dr. Calvin Hill could not be here today. Also sponsored by Athletics. We have Director of Athletics, Craig Poisson, and his most capable assistant, whose title could probably fill our full hour here, the Assistant Athletic Directors for Compliance and Student Athlete Well-Being, Michelle Cecina, who has absolutely instrumental in planning this event. In fact, we happened to run into each other about 9:30 last night on campus and putting the final touches on this. Why is this one of my favorite days of the year? It's because it combines what I regard really as the two great traditions of Springfield College. Athletics, that's pretty well known. You walk around the campus, you see the statue of Dr. Naismith, great athletic heritage from the school's inception in 1885 to the present day. But also social justice, and that may be less well known to people, but if you study the history of this institution, I think you will see that that strand of social justice has also been here from its inception. And there are many, many examples of that I could cite, but in the interest of brevity, I'm not going to cite them quite now, other than to say that those two strands, I think, have come together many, many times historically. Most recently, last year, in January of 2022, when Springfield College was awarded the NCAA Division III LGBTQ+ Athletics Department of the Year award, a pretty remarkable honor that would have made that man, Tom Waddell, whose cutout is there. That cutout lives in my office. It's sort of like Groundhog Day, Punxsutawney Phil. He gets out one day a year. This is it, for the Sports and Social Justice Symposium, because he embodies that spirit. Some of you know the Tom Waddell story. I'll give you a very abbreviated version. He was certainly one of the greatest athletes ever to come through Springfield College. Some say the greatest. He was in the class of 1959. It's a long time ago, even before I was alive, so it must be a long time ago. And he was a three-sport athlete in a surprising array of sports: football, gymnastics, track and field. Incredibly accomplished in all of them. So accomplished in track and field that he wound up representing the United States in the 1968 Olympic Games in Mexico City in the decathlon, and took 6th in the world. The 68 Olympics was a big social justice Olympics. Those of you who know your history know that that was the Black Power Olympics, the two sprinters on the medal stands, and many people at the time really came out strongly against Tommie Smith and John Carlos, but one person who right in the moment, that very day, if you look at newspapers the next day, who was strongly in favor of their activism was Tom Waddell, who would later go on he was an Army paratrooper, he was a doctor, I mean, just a over-the-top life. And then 1976 comes out in the pages of People magazine, comes out as gay. Way before that was a stand that would have popular support. Wound up starting the gay games, would die of AIDS at age 49 in 1987. His daughter, Jessica Waddell Lewenstein, was one of our speakers for the Sports and Social Justice Symposium. So, one of the great Springfield College presences. It's been a sort of a personal hero of mine. During my year as humanities professor in 2014 and 2015, one of the big events was the Tom Waddell Day. And that was the year in which Dr. Cathie Schweitzer, who was our speaker, that was her last year as the athletic director. And Craig Poisson, who is here today, was named athletic director right about at that time, and came up to me right after the Tom Waddell day and just said, we have to continue this, we have to continue this. He just had this sense of just madman urgency about him. And you just can't say no to Craig in a moment like that. And so I said, sure, let's find a way to do it. And out of that conversation was born the Sports and Social Justice Symposium, which over the last several years has just been a great, great event. It combines two things. There is a recognition of a student athlete or two, not about their athletic prowess, although most of them have been pretty fantastic athletes, but really about their off-field contributions to making the world a better place. And the award that we give out in Tom's name is called the Leveling the Playing Field Award, which is a great athletic metaphor, but also a great social justice metaphor. It's about fairness. And the second part of this is that we have had, the prime part of our program is that we bring forth a speaker who is sort of an iconic figure about sports and social justice. And we've had great speakers over the years, and we've highlighted a number of different dimensions of social justice. Last year it was about race. We had Aaron Kelton, who's a Springfield College alum, who's a Division I head football coach. That was about race. Black coach, a social justice figure. We did a year about Islamophobia with Bilquis Abdul-Qadir, legendary local basketball player. We had a great program about homophobia with Jessica Waddell Lewenstein, Tom's daughter. We did one about disability issues with Justin Zook, who is a Springfield College swimmer, who's a 3-time gold medalist in the Paralympic Games. And gender equity has been a huge focus of this symposium over the years because it's an enormous issue in our culture. And we've had some great speakers. Justin Siegel, who was a Springfield College graduate and is a pioneer in women's baseball. Runs an organization called Baseball for All. Mimi Murray, needs no introduction. And this year, 2022-23, has been a huge year for that topic because obviously this is the 50th anniversary of the Title IX legislation, and led by the heroic work, I don't think that adjective is overstated really, of Cathie Mangano as our humanics professor, who has just led one program after another that have put this front and center. It's been a great year for that, from start to finish. It's just been great, right from the very first, the first week when we had a 9-9 for Title IX event about women's basketball. We had Maura Healey, who was not quite then yet our governor, but was a Harvard basketball alum, and some great basketball players. In that spirit, we welcome back today's featured presenter, who is Dr. Cathie Schweitzer. Those of you of a certain age know Dr. Schweitzer quite well because he was really a legendary presence here at Springfield College for about 20 years. Came here as the assistant or associate, exactly, what the title, assistant? Associate athletic director under Ed Billick in 1996, and then would be named the athletic director first on an interim basis and then on a full-time basis starting from 2000 until 2015 when she passed the baton to Craig Poisson. During her time as athletics director, the first and to this point only woman director of athletics at Springfield College, our athletics programs thrived as they obviously do to this day, winning a slew of championships, and not just on the field success, but a number of community service awards, things that were very much in the humanics spirit. Dr. Schweitzer has led an extraordinary life with athletics and social justice really as the cornerstone, so she's the perfect speaker, I think, for this moment. Among other things, before Springfield College, she had been a Division I head basketball coach at the University of Oklahoma, played pro football for a team called the Oklahoma Dolls. Can't wait to hear about that. And she is a member of multiple halls of fame, including the National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics, NACDA Hall of Fame, in 2021, and the one that I think she's even more proud of than that, which is the Springfield College Athletics Hall of Fame 2020. So during COVID, when most of us weren't doing much, she was just hopping around from one Hall of Fame induction to another. I will close the introduction with the words from our current athletic director, who is a great disciple of Dr. Schweitzer's, and Craig Poisson says, "It was such a valuable experience to work on Dr. Schweitzer's staff during her time as the director of athletics. Cathie's role in athletics, be it on campus, through the NUMAC, or various other sport leagues in which she was intricately involved, or nationally, was grounded in two wonderful tenets: an open-door policy and safeguarding the welfare of the student athlete. I learned much under Cathie's leadership, and I am grateful for her continued support." Thus ends my rather long-winded, but hopefully reasonably entertaining introduction. Welcome, Cathie. So our plan is to have a conversation for 20 to 30 minutes to open up to some questions here, and then to cut this off no later than 12:45 so that we can have our awards presentation. So Dr. Schweitzer, first, welcome back. How does it feel to be on this stage?
This stage, I'm nervous. I don't know why I've done this many times, but it's always great to be back on Springfield College's campus.
So our time, roughly intersected. You came here in 1996. I came here in 1999. You were the athletic director for about the first 15 years that you were athletic director. I was here. What are you most proud of your time as athletic director here at Springfield?
Oh, there's several things I'm most proud of, but I think the one thing I really enjoyed was watching our student athletes grow and develop over the 4 or 5 years that they were here. And there's nothing like seeing them in their first year on campus, all excited and everything, and young, experiencing different things, but yet they grow and develop as they go, both socially, athletically, academically, and it's just a delight to watch that.
We'll ask you in a few moments about the moment that you got word that you would be the athletics director. I know that was a big moment, and I do want to hear that story. But before I want to set that up a little bit by talking a little bit about your background. In an odd way, I would say that you were almost groomed to become an athletics director from the beginning, because you were sort of directing, if you will, little athletics programs all the time as you were a young person growing up with a love of basketball in Akron, Ohio. Like, that LeBron James guy, also someone from Akron who knows a thing or two about basketball, and you always said that was your first love, that sport. So you had a kind of unique childhood in terms of sports right in your neighborhood. I wonder if you could share that story.
Sure, I'd be happy to. When I was growing up in Akron, there were 98 kids between the ages of 4 and 18 on my block and the street directly across. So we had a lot of different fields. One house was a basketball court, my backyard was a baseball time, and we had a football field. We had a block of a grade school field to play on, just a block of the street. And so there was never any doubt that there was always something to do and play in. And of course I played with the guys. I played with the boys. I had a couple other girls, but sure, I was named a tomboy because if girls did something that's outside the norm, you were a tomboy. I was a proud tomboy at the time. People used it as a kind of a slang, as a bully. Oh, you tomboy, you, and I just said, that's okay. I like playing with the guys and the gals. So I had a really nice opportunity to play, and we played outside till dark. My dad made the whistle, and everyone knew it was time to go home at that time. And we made up our own games, and there were not any organized sports at the time until I moved out to Cathie. But it was unique in Akron. It was fun. It was always something to do, and I would never change where I grew up or how I grew up.
And you grew up during very interesting times historically in terms of the social justice part of the equation. So you graduated from high school, I believe, in 1969. This is such a, right in the midst of the Vietnam War, all the tumultuousness of 1968, the aforementioned Olympics with the Black Power salute, the assassinations that, really tore our country apart during that year, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King. You go off to college in Akron, you're about 20 minutes away from Kent State, and there was this horrific shooting there. What was it like for, maybe speaking to current students, to grow up in a time of so much social unrest?
In the 60s, it definitely was a contentious time, and I went to the University of Akron, stayed at home, and went to college, and at that time, there were a lot of protests, there were a lot of marches, as you mentioned, 3 assassinations of the key people in the civil rights movement during the 60s. And when I got to college in '69, there was a lot of unrest. Akron had a big riot, and there was a lot of turmoil between the Akron Police Department and the black community. And there was a huge riot for a week. And I know at that time we had already moved from Akron out to Copley, a suburb, when I was in 8th grade. And so we weren't allowed to go into Akron. People who did drive downtown, some of the people would get their cars stopped. One woman, a white woman, had gotten drug out of her car and hit with a breakage. She had a child in her car. She did not die, she survived. But buildings were being burned down, cars were being burned, and so it was a frightening time. That it was just one moment of, and this was a few months after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. So it wasn't immediately afterward, but it just came just because of the tense situation and environment. When I was at Akron U, 69 through 73, the Kent State shootings of 4 people dead, 13 people were shot altogether by the National Guard, and they were out there protesting because the president had just invaded Cambodia and was supposed to, get out of the war, and instead he increased the action of the war, and so people were protesting that elevation of the war. And so I did get involved in some protests on campus. We had a sit-in at the administrative building, which a lot of people did, a lot of campuses did. There was a national student strike during that time in order to, and they closed colleges for a week, and primarily because of the shootings at Kent State and protesting where we were in the Vietnam War at that time. And I was a little bit torn about protesting, because at that time I had 2 brothers that were in draft state, and one was number 5 and the other one had number 11, so they had really, really low numbers in the draft. So I was kind of torn about knowing that they were going to go. They both enlisted in the Navy. They took a choice instead of in the Army. One brother was on the USS Saratoga on an aircraft carrier, and the other brother stayed stateside. Unfortunately, he had some duty at the Arlington Cemetery, which was not a very pleasant duty, but at least he was stateside and safe. So there was in the music during that time, the 60s, a lot of war protest music was going on with Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. They made a song about 4 Dead in Ohio, and Bob Dylan, Joey Baez, and it was just, it was really good music, but it was sad. It was all about the war.
Yeah, that's a great background on the times. Such tumultuous and difficult times, and a lot of the struggle was then, is now about fairness, about trying to nudge our country into its very lofty founding words about we the people and being created equal, and that's an ongoing struggle. And obviously a component of that was about women in sports, and this is still, when you came to college, this was still a couple of years ahead of Title IX. Your college years take us from pre-Title IX to the birth of Title IX. And I think it's instructive to hear a little bit about how you got involved in intercollegiate sports during that time and what you had to do and your friends and teammates in order to create a team and finance a team, and it's, I think it would be pretty interesting for our current athletes to hear how you made that work.
If I could just back up one more to high school. When we moved out to Copley, there were no girls' sports in the high school, and I played softball recreationally in the town softball league. And then I wanted to start a basketball team at the high school. And when we moved out there, my dad put a basketball goal up in the backyard because my older brother was a pretty good basketball player. So I decided to have tryouts in my backyard. And there were about 26, 28 women, girls from the high school that came. And we had a week of tryouts. I had tryouts. And my brother reminded me that his wife of 51 years was at the tryouts in our backyard, and that's how he met her. She didn't make the team. So it's kind of a fun story.
So you're a matchmaker too.
That too. So anyways, in college in '69, when we started, I went to the girls' gym and was shooting hoops with a few other women that showed up. And we were just shooting hoops. Some of them had a better experience in high school than I did in terms of having a formalized team. And so we were playing, and we had what we called a Women's Recreation Association, WRA. And I became president of that the spring semester of my first year. But Linda Camphor, who was the current president of WRA, she went to the head of the physical education department and asked Dr. Maluk if we could have a women's basketball program. And he said, sure you can. And he helped us get $300 from the student union. But he had this to say, and I'll read this, it's quite interesting. But when we started, first of all, it was our expense minus the $300 we received. We made our own uniforms, ordered t-shirts, we drove our own cars, we had to fight for the girls' gym to be able to utilize it, and we had to collect money to pay for our officials and so forth, and we drove our own cars and piled more people in the car than we probably should have. And if we did stay overnight, when we finally went to the state tournament, or the AIAW state tournament, we stayed 5 and 6 people in a room. Somebody on the floor, somebody on a cot, and so those were the times as it was. But Andy Maluk said this. He said he had no problem with the women's basketball team as long as they always act like ladies, dress like ladies, and behave both on and off the campus like ladies. Quote. And that was in an article that the university had written. So we did get the $300. We played, I think, 6 games in a year. Then my sophomore year, we found a graduate assistant who would be our coach, and we played maybe 8 games that year with local colleges. And then the athletic director, Gordon Larson, at the time saw that women's athletics was inevitable. And in September 1971, he hired Marion Tripodi to coach both volleyball and basketball, thus the start of varsity basketball at the University of Akron. And it wasn't recognized those 2 years as AIAW. If you look back at the records, they say University of Akron basketball started in 1974. And they didn't recognize the first 2 years when we did compete AIAW. And I called the sports information probably about 10 years ago. The director wanted to know why that was. He said, well, we really weren't even going to recognize 74. We were going to only recognize after the NCAA took over. So next time I go back to Akron in June, I have an appointment to meet with the director of athletics and see if we can rectify. I have all the records from when we played those 4 years and see what we can do to recognize.
All that to say that history is herstory. It is important. I mean, the stuff that what exists now, and we are, we're still on a trajectory. We are not at that level playing fields by any stretch of the imagination. But you look at the sporting landscape now of women's basketball coming off this year's Final Four, which was absolutely riveting basketball. I mean, the TV ratings for the women's games higher than the men's games. I mean, you'd have ever thought at that point that we would see that day, that those games, that showdown between LSU and Iowa, and the 2 stars, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and I mean, that was magnetic athletic competition. And I think we have, we are at a whole new place, which is so exciting. But we didn't just get there by snapping our fingers. We got there through, on the backs, the hard effort of people like yourself who are paying for your own uniform, sleeping, 5 in a room, bringing sleeping bags, into these cheap hotels to be able to play. That's how this was built. And our time is tight, unfortunately, we can't hear all about this, but I certainly invite people to try to get to know Dr. Schweitzer, who I'm sure would be happy to talk and communicate with you. Her journey is an amazing journey. It's really enjoyable for me to meet with her a couple times and to walk up to this event to sort of get to know her better. And I just want to hit a couple of highlight moments. We're not going to be able to get to them all because, how are we doing on time, Michelle?
15 more minutes.
15 minutes, okay, that's good. So, after your days at the University of Akron, so there were many stops along the way before you got to Springfield College, and you worked, at a huge D1 athletic program. You worked at D3, highly academic program at Grinnell College in Iowa, Albion. I want to first go to the University of Oklahoma and what that was like. So you, at still a pretty young age, how old were you when you became the head women's basketball coach at the University of Oklahoma?
Probably too young as I look back, but I was 23.
23, head women's coach, University of Oklahoma. And that was was then probably is now like a big football school. That's what it was known as. And there was the head football coach, and you had a very interesting connection. I wonder if you could share that story.
Yeah, the head coach at the time was Schweitzer, and I'm Cathie Schweitzer. So he and I, we ate in the athletic training for our meals. The coaches were allowed to eat in there. It was one of our perks, I guess you would say. And my relationship with him was always kidding, joking. He was a pretty good guy at the time, great football coach, really knew his X's and O's, and it was a great program at the time when I was there. And of course, we had tickets on the 50-yard line, all the coaches did, and so it was a great atmosphere to follow the football program. But he did come to our basketball games a couple times, I think because of our friendship and our relationship. And then, let me talk about him coming to our football. Hold off.
Oh, sure. And the nicknames that you called each other, I thought that was fun.
He called me Schweitz, and I called him Switzer, or I called him Schweitzer, and he called me Switzer. So we called each other the opposite names of who we really were.
And what was it like? You're coaching in your early to mid-20s. I mean, very high-profile basketball. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it was a great experience. I think I had the opportunity when I was at Bowling Green State University, where I got my master's degree in exercise physiology. I had the opportunity to coach with one of the best coaches in the state of Ohio, Sue Hagerty. And I was a JV coach and the assistant head coach. And I think, I felt that prepared me. And then when I got to Oklahoma, there were no scholarships yet. And this was in 75. There were no scholarships. For the first 2 years, we went, I think, 3-12, and then 4-16. And it wasn't until my third year, 78, that we got scholarships, and we went 20-12. So the scholarships were very helpful in recruiting. We had the opportunity to recruit mostly in-state, did do a little bit of recruiting in East St. Louis, and it provided opportunities for women who would not have had the opportunity to play intercollegiate or even to get an education, because there were a couple Native Americans that were on our team also and had that opportunity to earn a scholarship and get an education on top of it. So we really flipped the program around once we got scholarships and worked hard at it.
Very different times. Obviously, you also were coaching field hockey, right? At the same time, head coach of 2 different sports.
Yeah.
And then, as if that were not enough to fill every waking hour between recruiting and everything else that goes involved with it, you also found time somehow to launch your own involvement as a professional football player, of course. So could you tell us that story? And I think you may have some visual aids actually as well for this.
Sure. This was in 75, 76, 77, 78 that I played for the Oklahoma City Dolls. They just started the team. And they also made a movie, Oklahoma City Dolls, just about, people working in all kinds of fields and careers, and then now we came together as a football program. But we had tryouts, and there were 70 women that came to try out in the Oklahoma City, Norman area, and there were 4 male coaches who were coaching our team, and then after the tryouts were made, we made the cuts and we made the team. Barry Schweitzer came up to our practices a couple times, and we thought that we were hot stuff, because we had the head coach at the University of Oklahoma coming up. And so, it was semi-professional, I might have to say. But some people got paid. I got paid $100 a game. Our quarterback got $150 a game, and so there were just probably a dozen of us that actually got paid to play. I played as a running back and a safety. And during my 1 year, I had 11 interceptions in safety. I had more interceptions than anyone in the NFL. This was our practice jersey, so we were small. This was our practice jersey. They wouldn't let us keep our other jersey. And then my final year, I played for the Lawton Tornadoes, because we had some political issues in our team. Some of the oil people started wanting to come in and control who our football program was, who was coaching. And so half the team left, and we went and played for the Lawton Tornadoes. And this was our jersey. My number was tucked halfway into my pants, so but same rules and everything as the guys played, except we had an extra 15-yard penalty if you pulled someone by the ponytail. We had a very good team. We competed against, I watched the Toledo Tornadoes play when I was living in Ohio. And the Oklahoma City, we played Toledo. They came to our place, we played them, we beat them. We went to they beat us, I'm sorry. And then we went to the national championship in Toledo, Ohio, and we won that national championship. And the teams were from California, and from Texas, and Ohio, and Denver. And so it was, I always loved football. I still love football. And to have the opportunity to play instead of being a cheerleader for my brothers was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for me. So I have some other pictures, paraphernalia, if you care to look at them.
What a great story. A fascinating time. And I wish we had time for a lot more of this, but we're going to need to jump ahead because we want to talk about your experience here at Springfield College. So after a number of stops along the way, you landed here as the Associate Athletic Director. How did you find out about it, and what were your first impressions of Springfield College?
My first impression of Springfield College when I came in '96, well, I learned about the position from Dr. Linda DeLano. We had gone to the University of Iowa together for our doctorate, and I was at the Mayford Convention. She came up and showed me the announcement for Springfield College. She said, Schweitzer's is right up your alley. You could move into administration. I was ready to get out of coaching, and I could still teach, which was most important to me. And so I applied. I interviewed with the provost at the time at the convention, and then I was brought onto campus. Coach Graves picked me up. He said, "Who's who?" I said, "I'm the guard." She said, "She's the center." So that's how we found each other in the airport. Anyways, I had a wonderful interview. Loved this college. Had always wanted to come here, and to have the opportunity to come to Springfield College was people say that it's a dream job. It was my dream job. And when I found out that I was going to be the director of athletics, Dr. Flynn called me and had me come over to his office. And we were having the NUMAC meetings at the time, right over there in the conference room. And he came in and introduced to the NUMAC that I was going to be the next director of athletics. And I was overwhelmed. I was excited. Of course, I called my mom right away, and it was the best feeling. It's hard to even express what it means to be at Springfield College and to still be a part of it. So much history and tradition, and the wonderful people that come to this institution and graduate and stay involved. It was a delight. And every day I walked up that ramp, going to my office at Lake Arena, I kind of puffed my chest out, put a big smile on my face. I thought, I have the best job in the world. And I truly meant that to the day, my last day, walking up that ramp before I retired. Not a better job in the world.
You just get a sense in hearing Dr. Schweitzer, how much in her heart this place was and is and always will be. how much this represented, how much the values of this place are organic to her. It's a place that really fit your heart, it still does. And so I'm sure that this is something that you continue to follow a little bit more from afar. What do you see as you look at the landscape of Springfield College sports right now? What stands out to you?
They just keep getting better, and all the way around, reflecting the humanities philosophy. Great leadership under Dr. Poison, some great things are happening, recognizing the LGBTQ community on this campus, recognizing all the differences on this campus by the entire administration. Not only athletics, but the athletic program. I'd love to come back and watch. I'd love to meet the student athletes. And I think it just continues to grow. Sometimes you think you can't grow anymore. You look at our facilities and what has been done over the years by the staff and by the administration. It just keeps getting better. And you wonder where the bar is and how you can keep raising that bar. And Springfield College athletics continues to do that.
Yeah, it's obviously, I mean, we're not a perfect place. We're not without our faults, our contradictions. That's all true. But I think that what allows the trajectory, generally speaking, to be up is just the continued commitment of people like Dr. Cathie Schweitzer, who are just determined to hold this place to its deepest values. We talked about that with America. It's also true at Springfield College that we have these, lofty humanics goals, and we talk about leadership in service to humanity. That's a pretty big thing to shoot for. But we get there when everybody commits to it. And we get there with really terrific leadership. And you provided that in a big, big way. And so, on behalf of the institution, if I can say that, do I have that power? I'm going to take that power. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for this really wonderful conversation today. Do we have time for a question or two, Michelle? We do. Any questions for Dr. Schweitzer? All right. You probably don't need this because you've got your coaching voice. But
I'm Coach Graves. Everybody knows who I am. I'm the women's basketball coach here. And I'm the center to her point guard. We have a lot of young people here. And I always know we're an investment in developing those people. What advice would you give them in getting in the world of athletics? As a coach, as a teacher, as an administrator, what words of wisdom would you tell this group that's about to step out or is developing into their role? I mean, some of the things I know of you, your character, your perseverance, and obviously your passion. So could you help our younger people in this room kind of guide them a little more?
Well, if you haven't already, I would say start now. Get involved. Get involved in the leadership programs that are on campus. See how you can volunteer in the athletics program if you're thinking of moving into athletic administration. Contact Dr. Poisson, contact Michelle, contact Janice, contact the other staff members and say, what can I do to get involved and learn a little bit more about the road ahead. So get involved. Find someone that can advocate for you, that can mentor you. They might not be on this campus, they might be somewhere else. Call me, reach out, email me. One of the best things I do in my current job, I teach at UMass, and there's not a day that I don't teach about getting involved in about Title IX and what that has meant for women on this earth. And so, I sincerely mean that. I'm not too old to get involved and reach out and talk to you about your future career and so forth and mentor. That's the situation.
anything else for Dr. Schweitzer? All right, well, please join me in giving a huge thank Okay, we are now going to segue into the second part of our program, and to do so, I want to call forth Michelle Lee Cicino, who among many other distinctions happens to be the only player in Springfield College basketball history on the women's side to score 1,000 points and grab 1,000 rebounds. Pretty amazing career. But everything that she did on the court, which sounds like it was remarkable, I think her greatest achievement really is what she's been doing as an athletic administrator, and her commitment to these issues of social justice is just absolutely tip-top. This has been one of the real enjoyable things for me, is being able to partner with you on this every year. It's a real highlight, so I'm going to turn the program over to you for our Tom Waddell Leveling the Playing Field Awards.
Thank you, Professor Dobrow. Can you hear me? Okay. And thank you, Dr. Schweitzer, for sharing your knowledge and your passion and your inspiration with all of us today. As you know, my name is Michelle Lisacina. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Compliance and Student Athlete Wellbeing, and I have the distinct pleasure of announcing this year's Tom Waddell Leveling the Playing Field Award winners. I'd like to start by thanking Phyllis Plotnick, who started the Tom Waddell Fund, as well as all the donors to the fund. The award in Tom Waddell's name is not predicated on athletic excellence. The winner need not be a standout on the playing surface, but they should demonstrate an authentic off-field commitment to making the world a better place. Any activity or combination of activities that show a demonstrated commitment to leveling the playing field can make a student athlete eligible for award consideration. Committee members spent a great deal of time deliberating the nominations this year and came to a unanimous decision that each of our 4 finalists was deserving of receiving the recognition. Among the nominees who without question are striving to create a more just world are Carolyn Ives from women's soccer and Allie Townsend from women's volleyball. This year, the committee chose 2 recipients for the Tom Waddell Leveling the Playing Field Award. These 2 student athletes are both seniors who have made a lasting impact on the community, both on and off campus. Our first award recipient is a track and field student athlete. They have spearheaded efforts to make Springfield College an inclusive environment for all students, especially the LGBTQ+ community. Today's honoree was a member of the student athlete leadership team that started the LGBTQ affinity group for student athletes and helped partner with the national organization Athlete Ally, an organization that believes everyone should have equal access, opportunity, and experience in sports, regardless of your sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Through this organization, our recipient has been able to bring nationally renowned speakers to Alden Street. Their continued impact is best illustrated and articulated by those who have watched them grow and develop during their time here. Starting with Coach Miller, who said, "This student athlete embodies what it means to be a Springfield College student athlete. They are someone that decides to take on challenges and is passionate about what they put their mind to. A true competitor both on and off the field, and extremely humble given all their success. I am very proud of what they have done and very happy that I've gotten to know them so well." In addition, their teammate, Krista Carr, said, "I have had the opportunity to see my teammate grow into the amazing person they are today. We have been teammates, but more importantly friends, for the last 4 years and have seen many seasons of each other. They have grown into themselves and have made a lasting impact on Springfield College and the community. Now in our final year here, we often miss each other at practice because they are off changing the world. Whether that is being an advocate, marching for change, acting in the school play, or being invited by the NCAA to speak on a panel, they are making an impact. I could go on and on about all that they have done because they just continue to push themselves to be better and to make those around them better. I know that they have changed my life for the better, having known them these last few years, and I'm so excited to see all they accomplish as they head to Northeastern University to continue their education. Thank you for being a shining light for me, and congratulations on this wonderful award. No one is more deserving." This psychology and sociology major, who has been a 4-year member of the indoor and outdoor track and field team, will graduate this May. I now present to you our first recipient of the 2023 Tom Waddell Leveling the Playing Field Award, Lily Gould.
My name is Lily Gould. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank my family, my partner, professors, athletics, Office of DEI, Office of Non-Discrimination Initiatives, the GSA, Athlete Ally, SGA, not meaning to drop anybody, just you know how amazing all of you people are. You're part of my big family here, why I like to call this place home, these past 4 years. Yeah, let's get into it. A mantra I've stated to myself since my first year here is "You've always been enough," which directly affirms myself, and it has changed its meaning throughout the years. Obviously, I'm a strong believer in putting your identity into everything you do. I think it makes it more meaningful. And that being said, I came to college as a woman, playing women's sports, trying to advocate and convince myself that I myself was also a woman. Very much changed. That quickly became not the case when COVID happened, and I kind of had the time to sit with my thoughts and really think about who I was. I think we all did that in COVID, but what it meant for me was that I was confident in being a binary breaker, and I began to seek out what this meant for me in athletics specifically, playing on a women's team still, and what that meant for me, and obviously did my own research, looked at the daunting statistics of suicide rates, depression rates, specifically with the LGBTQ community, and obviously the anti-LGBTQIA+ bills, analyzed those, and that was back in 2020. So a lot has happened since. Spring of 2021, I sought our campus's Athlete Ally chapter, and we basically, a little background on that, we saw how our platform as athletes could be heard across the world. That fall, along with the GSA, we designed the college's first ever Pride Parade, annual. And I saw a piece of leveling the playing field for specifically, outside of myself, transgender athletes. And not knowing that it was for me all along. Jump to now, jump to a couple years. We need to remember those COVID years. We've added pronouns to athletic rosters, brought awareness to various microaggressions surrounding language on campus, especially in the athletic space. This year we have made the all-gender bathrooms in the varsity weight room, and more to come, to be determined. And I've also had the opportunity to be a keynote speaker at the New England Preparatory Athletic Conference, where it was the first time I got to share my story about my identity as a trans masculine person in athletics. So yeah, just a lot of growing here. And I choose to be very vulnerable about my story. First of all, for myself, but also to let the people know in the room that identity-based work means much more if you're very open to people about it, and it goes a lot further in the end. So, jump to next week, and talking about the future now. Next week I will be heading to the NCAA Inclusion Forum to be a panelist on 2 panels in Indianapolis. One is for trans athlete inclusion in sport with the actual policymakers for the NCAA, which is really cool, and one for belongingness in the NCAA with other student athletes across the nation. It makes me excited to see that in the world of 420 plus anti-LGBTQ bills, that the NCAA, a national organization, is kind of bridging the gap and inviting student athletes like myself to share our stories. And I think specifically in the world of sport, this is a unique platform where we can actually influence other people, especially the youth who look up to us. And to round it out, I also this year, a little self-plug for the, we've designed a lavender graduation ceremony, furthering the support for the LGBTQ community on campus. They don't have to be athletes, but then again, another thing that's happening, because LGBTQ people give their vulnerability every day to the outside world, and whether that is met with hate or love, it's very important to celebrate people. And I definitely have felt that here. And with all of you nice faces in the crowd, thank you. Thank you for supporting me. I will be headed to Northeastern in the fall to continue my education with a master's degree in counseling psychology and social justice, integrated in psychology fields of activism and getting people to be consistently there, not just when it's a headline in the media. And Boston, I think, is the perfect place where I can kind of bridge the gap as well, because we can directly impact nonprofits and schools, which we've done that through Athlete Ally here, to know that we've always been enough. Thank you.
Lily's jumping on a bus that leaves in 4 minutes, so best of luck. Our second recipient is a women's lacrosse student athlete. After being diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease her freshman year of high school, she spearheaded an organization called the Homemade Hugs Project, where she and her family, friends, and teammates have made and donated over 300 blankets to the pediatric endocrinology unit at UMass Memorial Hospital in Worcester, where she has received care since her diagnosis. In her essay, she stated, "It is so beyond incredible that children who are ill and in the hospital will be receiving blankets created by Springfield College women's lacrosse players to bring them comfort and support." Her continued impact is best illustrated and articulated by those who have watched her grow and develop in her time here. Starting with her coach, Jen Thomas, this student athlete is such an impactful player, but more importantly, she is one of the most inspiring student athletes I've ever coached. She brings out the good in people, both on and off the field, and has an infectious smile that is contagious to those around her. When someone asks me what type of person attends Springfield College, I often talk about this student athlete. She is a servant leader, she wants to build a better world, she is involved in numerous organizations, and most importantly, she truly cares about every single person she encounters. On behalf of the Springfield College Women's Lacrosse Program, I'd like to say congratulations for receiving this incredible award. We are so proud of you and can't wait to see your continued efforts in making the world a better place. Her teammates, Carly Crispins and Allison Del Monte, said, "There is no doubt that she is a fierce competitor on the field, but her teammates revere her for her infectious positivity and incomparable passion for her sport and for her teammates. She works endlessly to advocate for mental health awareness, and her work with Morgan's Message in an attempt to make sure that no student athlete will feel alone in their struggles. Whenever the team is in the locker room and she is about to give a speech, she always makes sure to emphasize that above everything else, every person on the team is important. She makes sure everyone knows that this team cannot be successful without each and every one of us. This exemplifies the love she has shown her teammates and community throughout her time at Springfield College." This occupational therapy major, who has been a 4-year member of the women's lacrosse team, will graduate this May. I now present to you our second recipient of the 2023 Tom Waddell Leveling the Playing Field Award winner, Arielle A.J. Johnson.
I would first like to thank my family, friends, teammates, and coaches for giving me the opportunity to receive an award of this honor. The Springfield College culture is something that is completely unmatched. I am forever grateful to be a member of the Springfield College Women's Lacrosse team. My teammates and coaches have taught me what it means to show up. They have shown me that everything you do can make a positive impact on someone's life. And when I think about what it means to level the playing field, I think about making a difference for those who have struggles that may not be seen. The Homemade Hug Project is one way I try to create a more just world. This organization is inspired by my personal experiences growing up with a rare autoimmune disease. Freshman year of high school, I was diagnosed with Addison's disease. Addison's disease affects 1 in 100,000 people in the United States, and I am one of them. The first year post-diagnosis was really challenging for me, adjusting to my body and learning how to adapt to life again. Although this experience was very challenging, it allowed me to meet life-changing people. I will never forget the nurse who took care of me when I was first diagnosed. In a time where I was afraid, that nurse brought me comfort. She single-handedly inspired me to pursue a career in healthcare. When I first came home from the hospital, I knew I wanted to give back. I was inspired by my mom and grandma to create the Homemade Hugs Project. This project is where my mom, grandma, and I make fleece blankets and donate them to the Pediatric Endocrinology Unit at UMass Memorial Hospital in Worcester, Mass., which is my unit. The first donation in 2016, we made 8 blankets, and I thought that was awesome. But our last donation, we had over 50. In total, we have donated over 300 blankets to the Pediatric Endocrinology and Oncology Department at UMass. Last year, I was able to share this project with my teammates, and we had a blanket making day with our team impact player, Jillian, and made so many incredible blankets. I am so grateful for my teammates' selflessness and generosity to help make the world a more just place through my organization that is so close to my heart. We have continued this tradition on by making blankets as a team again this year. And each blanket that we make, like Michelle said, has a tag that every player gets to sign with their name and number. And I think that it's so inspirational that children can receive blankets that are personally made and signed by the Springfield College Women's Lacrosse team. Morgan's Message is a new passion of mine. Morgan's Message is an organization that is dedicated to Morgan Rogers, a former Duke University lacrosse student athlete who died tragically in July 2019 after battling mental health struggles. Morgan's Message is an organization that provides student athletes across the country with resources to normalize the stigma around mental health. I became an ambassador in the summer of 2022 and had the opportunity to attend many trainings about how you can be a better teammate and a better friend. One workshop that really stuck out to me was put on by the Kevin Love Foundation. NBA basketball player Kevin Love publicly opened about his mental health struggles as an athlete. He has now created an organization that collaborates with Morgan's Message about student-athlete mental health. The training I completed with the Kevin Love Foundation was about vulnerability. This session was very emotional but extremely impactful. I knew immediately that this was something I wanted to bring to my team. This fall, I led my teammates through this exact workshop about building vulnerability-based trust, where it's safe to take risks and face conflict as a team rather than fear it. Great teams and vulnerability go hand in hand. When you know your team members have your back, you can achieve great things. This workshop as a team was a game changer for us. Each player opened up and we bonded at a new level we never had before. Our head coach even participated and opened up about her own personal struggles, which was very impactful for every player on the team and something that I will never forget. Following this session, we have hosted other Morgan's Message workshops that have continued to build our culture that shows up for one another on and off the field. Leveling the playing field to me is acknowledging what is not seen. Just by looking at me, you would never know that I had an autoimmune disease. And just by looking at someone, you would never know that they may be having mental health struggles. However, these two organizations make it possible to highlight what is not seen. Morgan's Message and Homemade Hugs gives me the opportunity to show up for my teammates and create a more just world. Being a member of the Springfield College Women's Lacrosse team has taught me everything about the type of person that I want to be. has inspired me to level the playing field and show up not just for my teammates, but for everyone I encounter. Thank you.
Please join me in congratulating Lily and AJ one more time on their... This concludes our program. Thank you all for coming and have a great weekend.